Chapter 1685. Feng Liangqing's sadness. Feng Ruqing was slightly stunned, her heart beating faster. Nan Xian and Suyi. They should have nothing to do with the Nan family, right? The old master of the Nan family had once also lost his daughter, but that daughter was not Suyi. Feng Ruqing had doubted Suyi's identity when she first heard about the Nan family, and now she just hoped that this Nan family had nothing to do with them. However, if Nan Xian and Suyi were related to the Nan family, she had no choice but to kill the whole Nan family and re-establish a new Nan family with them. Dear granddaughter, let's go back. You're pregnant and still out and about fighting. What if you hurt my great-granddaughter? Leave these matters to me. Tell me who you want to kill, and I'll send out troops on your behalf. Tianyu was nervous. He was afraid she might make a mistake that might hurt her or her child. Master, seeing that Feng Ruqing was about to leave, Second Prince quickly ran to catch up with her. What about me? Feng Ruqing raised her eyebrows and looked back at Second Prince smilingly. Stay in Yunhuan Kingdom and be a good prince. Don't let anyone from Yunhuan Kingdom take a step into Tianling Kingdom. Otherwise, he'll come and settle the score with you. Oh, Second Prince stopped in his tracks, somewhat aggrieved, but he still watched her leave until her figure completely disappeared from his sight. From Yunhuan Kingdom, they had to pass through the Spirit Beast Mountain to reach Tianling Kingdom. The Spirit Beast Mountain was like a bridge between the four kingdoms. At this moment in the Spirit Beast Mountain, a red fox with one broken leg was running quickly. However, when it looked back, it saw that a group of people had leaped into its sight and surrounded it. This red fox looks like it has only lived for less than 20 years, but it has already reached King Warrior tier and can transform into a human form. Ha ha ha. How could the Nan family let go of such a spirit beast? An old man laughed arrogantly. The red fox looked scared, staring at the group of people in front of him with a solemn gaze. Little fox, it's better to surrender now. We will give great preferential treatment to surrendered spirit beasts. All the spirit beasts in Land of No Return belong to the Nan family. If you don't obey, you will be a traitor to the spirit beast clan. The red fox subconsciously took a few steps back. Its eyes flashed with a light, and it rushed off to the other side. Its leg was injured, so it could not run fast. After just a few steps, those people had already caught up to it. A light suddenly flashed, sending the red fox flying away before landing in front of a pair of feet. Me for extra chapters. Feng Ruqing stopped in her tracks and looked at the red fox that was covered with blood on the ground. She frowned as if she was considering something. The red fox raised its head, and a familiar face was reflected in the fox's eyes. The fox looked happy after it saw Feng Ruqing. However, when it thought of those people behind it, it gritted its teeth and wanted to walk away from Feng Ruqing. Wait! Feng Ruqing turned around and called out to the red fox. Do you know me? The fox's gaze did not seem like it was looking at a stranger. They must have known each other. Chapter 1686. Feng Liangqing's sadness. The red fox stepped forward and shook its head, indicating that it did not know her. You know me. Feng Ruqing raised her hand and dragged the fox into her arms. But all the spirit beasts I know are already contracted with me, and you're Luo Li's husband? The red fox's eyes flashed in panic as it looked at the powerful Nan family behind it. The look in its eyes had completely exposed it. The Luo family of Tianshan Manor had a red fox raised by Luo Li as her husband. The red fox had come out to save Luo Li on the day of the great disaster of Tianshan Manor and had suffered many injuries. However, the red fox back then was not as powerful as it was now. That was why Feng Ruqing did not recognize it in the beginning. She was only teasing this fox just now. People said foxes were smart and cunning, but this fox was so naive. When she was in Tianshan Manor, she had helped Luo Li heal the red fox. However, the time they spent together was too short, so she did not correctly remember this fox's scent. I don't know you. You've mistaken me for another fox, the red fox said slowly. So, you can speak like a human? Where's Luo Li? Why did you come to Land of No Return alone? And how did you become so strong? Feng Ruqing asked, ignoring the red fox's denial. The red fox stiffened, a little annoyed. I told you I don't know you. If you don't want any trouble, let me go. Oh, Feng Ruching smiled at the group of people that walked toward her. I've got my eye on this fox, so you all go back to your place. A yellow-robed old man stopped in front of her. He felt a bit furious after hearing Feng Ruching's words. Young lady, all the spirit beasts in the world belong to the Nan family. Do you want to rob others of their belongings forcefully? Feng Ruching laughed. But my girl loves this male fox. She will cry if she knows you've taken her fox. So, I cannot give it to you. The red fox stiffened. This woman, do you still not understand? How will I face Luo Li in the future if something happened to this woman? Huh. The old man snorted coldly. Then, you'll become the Nan family's enemy. Me for extra chapters. Suddenly, an old voice came from behind Feng Ruching. This voice was familiar to the people of the Nan family. All of them stiffened and looked in the direction of the voice. Since my granddaughter likes this fox, you people of the Nan family should give it to her. The yellow-robed old man's face sank as he looked at the old man in the red-robed with hatred on his face. Tianya, it's you again. Why do we meet you everywhere we go? Tianya laughed. That's just a misfortune for your Nan family. My granddaughter wants this fox. It'll spare your life if you leave immediately. Go back and tell that bastard, Nan, he doesn't need to keep sending people to chase me. I'll go to look for him myself later. And he paused and continued. Tell him to clean his neck and wait for me. The others from the Nan family were filled with anger after hearing Tianya's words. They tried to make a move, but the yellow-robed old man brought his hand up to stop them. We'll let this fox go for now. Let's go. Chapter 1687. Feng Lianking's sadness 4-inch, but no more buts. The yellow-robed old man glanced at Tianya coldly and sneered. Tianya, I hope you'll always be this arrogant. You'd better not fall into the hands of our Nan family. Otherwise, you'll definitely be worse than dead. He'll wait for you. Tianya laughed overbearingly. The yellow-robed old man gritted his teeth and wanted to leave. However, the moment he turned around, countless sword lights suddenly appeared and instantly slashed at his body. He turned back, staring at the sky in shock. You don't keep your word. Just now, I said I'll spare your life if you leave immediately. However, you didn't listen to my advice, so you can't blame me. Tianya's laughter was laced with cheerfulness and pleasure, as if teasing these people filled his heart with joy. Boom! The yellow-robed old man slumped to the ground, his eyes wide open, dead. Tianya laughed and turned to Feng Ruching. My dear granddaughter, did you see that? That guy is an emperor warrior. It might have taken hours to kill him. A surprise attack from behind would be much less troublesome. Feng Ruching was speechless. Is it really a good idea for you to say that in front of the Nan family? Feng Ruching looked up and saw the people from the Nan family trembling with fear in their eyes. Elder Wei was the most powerful one among them, and now he was dead. Did they have any chance of winning here? As I said before, if the Nan family appears in front of me again, it's not good to let them leave without giving something to them. Tianya sneered. Now you only have 3 seconds to get out of here. After 3 seconds, it'll swish. This time, everyone disappeared before Tian could finish his words. The entire spirit beast mountain became silent again. You follow me back. Feng Ruching's words were not a question, but a command. The red fox hesitated. The Nan family wants to capture me for extra chapters. But you're Luo Li's husband. I have the right to watch out for you on her behalf. The red fox was silent for a few moments. Then, you can't let Luo Li know what has happened to me. All right. Feng Ruching smiled faintly. Luo Li did not follow you here. She probably would not have been able to come. By the way, how did you get here? The red fox was startled. I promised Luo Li that I would go back and marry her when I could transform into a human. I went out on a training trip on my own, intending to improve my strength, and I accidentally got lost in a desert and fell from a cliff. A cliff? Isn't that the way Nan Xian and I came to land of no return? But I was lucky. I stumbled upon a relic of my ancestor and got its power, which allowed me to make a breakthrough to Advanced King Warrior tier. I guess you already know what happened later. The Nan family found me and chased me all the way to this place. It had not yet transformed into human form and gone back to marry Luo Li, so it would never fall into the Nan family's hand. Otherwise, there was no way it could go back to Luo Li for the rest of its life. The red fox raised its head abruptly and stared at Feng Ruching. What about? You start a contract with me? They will not try to capture a beast that isn't a contract. Chapter 1688. Feng Lianking's sadness v. Feng Ruching was stunned as she shook her head. No, you're Luo Li's husband. I want to start a contract with you. Why? The red fox was a little anxious. Its eyes reddened. Breaking the contract is somewhat troublesome. It is inconvenient for you to get married in the future. Feng Ruching held her forehead. It's better if you follow me back. It is dangerous for you to be out alone. The red fox lowered its head. It was somewhat disappointed, but it did not say anything else. It had only heard from those spirit beasts in Tisanyu mainland that it could enjoy endless benefits if it contracted with Feng Ruching. Who knew it might be able to reach Emperor Warrior tier, or transform into a human without making a breakthrough. Luo Li had been waiting for it for a long time, and it could not bear to make her wait any longer. Grandfather, let's go back. Feng Ruching turned to Tianya and said, Nancian is probably still looking for me. If he can't find me, he will definitely go back to Tianling Kingdom. Tianya smiled. My dear granddaughter, call me grandfather again. I love to hear people call me grandfather. Feng Ruching smiled. I don't know how many people in this world will love to call you that, just like Feng Liani. Feng Liani? Tianya sneered. I was kind enough to take her in back then, but as a result, she bullied my granddaughter. I won't forgive her even if she dies. Feng Liani's life was a tragedy. She was born to the wrong family. If she were just a girl from an ordinary family, perhaps she would not have developed such a temperament. However, she was in the Duan family. Duan Xiong hated her, and the old master Duan only saw her as a tool. Zhen Tian loved her, but if she really cared about her daughter, she would not have let her leave her hometown and stay away from the Duan family. Me for extra chapters. She also had a daughter. She could not bear to let Qing Han out of her sight, not to mention send her to someone else to grow up with a stranger. If Feng Liani was determined not to let that woman use her, perhaps her life would not have ended so miserably. She was too dependent on General Manner, forgetting that only with her strength she could make others respect her for the rest of her life. Hellion Manor, Tianling Kingdom. Hellion Yu was just about to walk out when she bumped into Hellion Ing. Are you going out? Hellion Ing smiled gently. I just returned from General Manor. Master Lianxing doesn't seem to be in a good mood lately. I sent him some lotus seed soup, and he said it's delicious. Oh, Hellion Yu responded faintly, without any emotions. You know I'm going out, but are still blocking my way. Move. Hellion Ing stiffened as she sighed lightly. You must change your temperament. You don't even know how these people in Wushang City are judging you. Hellion Yu frowned, looking somewhat impatient. I don't care. They like to judge people as if they are so perfect. But who knows what they fight about in secret? So pretend like a good brother or a good sister. TSK. Why should I be a two-faced person like them? Chapter 1689. Feng Lianking's sadness vih. Her words were somewhat sarcastic, making Hellion Ing a little embarrassed. I have promised my aunt that I will not argue with you again. She said I'm supposed to feel guilty about you, but why are you still bothering me? Don't think that I don't know that you were the one who pushed me and tried to harm me when we were in General Manor that day. Hellion Ying's face changed dramatically. What are you talking about? We're sisters. How could I do such a thing? Hellion, you seem to be getting increasingly impatient. She had already said this, and Hellion Ing still had not gotten out of the way. Hellion Ing, what exactly do you want from me? Oh, Hellion Ing bit her lip. I just envied my sister for being able to know young Lady Feng since long ago and becoming friend with her. I haven't been as lucky as you and haven't had the chance to get close to young Lady Feng. Get out of my way. Hellion, you could not hold her anger anymore. Otherwise, they'll tell Xiao Qing that you're bullying me. Hellion Ing stiffened again. She was a little reluctant, but eventually moved to the side. Hellion Ing. Hellion, you glanced at her. You have to please Xiao Qing first before you can marry Feng Lianqing. Trust me, if Xiao Qing doesn't like somebody, Grandfather Tian, you will never let that person enter General Manor. Feng Lianqing still feels guilty for harming Xiao Qing, and also forbids anyone she does not like to appear in General Manor. And Helian, you raise her chin proudly. Xiao Qing likes me. Do you think if I say I want to marry Feng Lianqing, he will reject me again? Do you still have a chance? Helian Ying's face turned pale. She understood that what Helian Yu said was the truth. So you better not mess with me. By the way, I don't like Feng Lianqing anymore. Now I'm going to wait for Grandfather Tianya and Xiao Qing at the city gate. Why don't you get out of here? This time, Helian Ying was not in the way of stopping Helian Yu. She was filled with anger as she looked at the young girl rushing toward the door happily. Yinger, when Yu Qin arrived, she saw Helian Ying standing in front of the gate, staring at it dumbly. Yu Qin was quite distressed and stepped forward. Yinger, what's wrong? Didn't you go to find Feng Lianqing? Is someone bullying you? Helian Ying lowered her eyes and bit her lips. I don't understand how Helian Yu has such great luck to be so close to Tianya's granddaughter. Why can't I meet her? If it were her, maybe she could get along better with young Lady Feng. Me for extra chapters. After all, she was better than Helian Yu in all aspects. Yinger, Yu Qin laughed helplessly. How many people do you think will like Helian Yu? Back then, young Lady Feng didn't know she's a member of General Manor. Now, with young Lady Feng's identity, would she still be friends with such an uneducated and unreasonable girl? Helian Ying was silent. Yu Qin continued, Tianya is nice to Helian Yu because your grandfather loves Helian Yu the most, and Tianya respects him. As for young Lady Feng being friends with her, you don't have to worry about this. How many people in Wushang City can stand Helian Yu? She's annoying. Really? Only then did Helian Ying quietly let out a sigh of relief. Mother, just now Helian Yu said that young Lady Feng liked her very much, and if she said she wants to marry Feng Lianqing, he would definitely accept her. Chapter 1690. Feng Lianqing's sadness, 7-inch he, Yu Qin sneered. She can only dream that. Everyone in Wushang City knows Master Lianqing hates her. Marry her? Ridiculous. Moreover, you are much better than Helian Yu. You can slowly approach young Lady Feng, and if she likes you, Master Lianqing will definitely marry you. Helian Ying's eyes lit up. She could already imagine the moment Feng Lianqing and her getting married. She giggled. Oh, Mother, just now Helian Yu said that she was supposed to feel guilty about me. What was that all about? Is it because Father neglected me for her? Helian Ying looked at Yu Qin blankly. I guess Helian Yu is not someone who would feel guilty about this. The emotions in Yu Qin's eyes changed slightly. She clenched her fists tightly, and her gaze was cold. Yinger, I don't want to tell you this at first, but your father has an affair with Tian, and Helian Yu is his daughter. Helian Ying's face turned pale, and her breathing grew heavier. What did you just say? The two of them have long been living together. Helian Yu is just a slut like her mother. She took your father from you. Yu Qin sneered as she said. Helian Ying stumbled back, somewhat unable to stand upright. Her eyes were filled with shock and pain. He lied to me. He said he was nice to Helian Yu because our family owed Helian Yu, and now... Ha ha! He lied to me and beat me for Helian Yu. Helian Ying gritted her teeth viciously. Her eyes were filled with hatred. Helian, you should indeed feel guilty toward me, because she owes me a lot. Yu Qin lowered her eyes, smirking. Helian Yufei, you're the one who chose to abandon my daughter and me. So don't blame me for making our daughter hate you. Yinger, you must never let your grandfather and your father know about this matter. Yu Qin raised her head and held Helian Ying's trembling hand. Your grandfather is old. He would fall ill if he knew about it. I know your grandfather is always siding Helian Yu, but he is still your grandfather. As for your father, if you question him, he won't admit it, and maybe he might get mad and leave us. You don't want your father to be Helian Yu's father, do you? Initially, Helian Ying could not control her desire to question Helian Yufei, but when she heard Yu Qin's words, she stopped in her tracks, and she was breathing fast and heavy with rage. Her father had not cared about her since she was young and had always favored Helion Yu. She had already been disappointed in him, and she did not expect him to go overboard and do something like this. How dare you take my father away from me? I'm going to make you an orphan without a father or mother. Me for extra chapters. Mother, I understand. I won't go to father. Helion Ing took a deep breath, her eyes filled with resentment. Seeing that Helion Ing had given up the urge to go to Helion Yufei, Yuqin was also subconsciously relieved. If Helion Ing really went and made a big scene in front of the old master Helion, her lies might be revealed. However, this was not her fault. She had not been bad to Helion Yu all these years, so the debt had been repaid. Why should she have to repay the debt for the rest of her life, just because Tian and her husband lost their lives to save her in Yinger? Chapter 1691. Feng Lianking's sadness 8 let Helion Yufei repaid the debt alone. She did not want to be nice to Helion Yu again and make Yinger suffer. Even the old master Helion was so unfair that he would not let Yinger get close to Feng Lianqing. The hatred in Yuqin's eyes grew even deeper. Helion Yu had hurt Yinger and ruined her relationship with her husband. She really wished Helion Yu would die together with her slut mother. Feng Lianqing sat in the study room alone, rubbing his temples, trying to ease the headache. A guard came in from outside the door and said helplessly, "Young lady Helion Ing, refused to leave just now. It was so hard to deal with her. She left a bowl of lotus seed soup and insisted I bring it to master, or else she would not leave." Feng Lianqing frowned. "You can just take it and give it to master's cats." The guard was silent for a moment. "But she's been acting strange lately. We don't know what's on her mind. In case she has put some kind of medicine in the lotus soup. And suddenly there's a bunch of newborn kittens. What are we supposed to do then?" One Feng Lianqing was startled. "Master loves cats so much. He can afford to raise all of them. By the way, why aren't my master and sister reaching back yet?" "Oh," Helion Manor's guard said that General and young Lady Feng wrote a letter to Second Lady Helion saying that they're coming back. Just now, someone saw Second Lady Helion running to the city gates happily. "Master, did you not receive the letter?" The guard looked confused. Feng Lianking's face stiffened. "Master and Sister Ruching wrote a letter to Helion Yu. Why didn't they tell me?" Feng Lianqing looked embarrassed and stood up. "Let's go to the city gate to greet him. Master doesn't want me to go, but I insist. I don't care if he will kill me later." The guard was slightly stunned. He felt that General Tian Yu would really beat Feng Lianqing to death if Feng Lianqing went uninvited. Helion Yu stared at the city gate, anticipating their arrival. Suddenly, a familiar scent came from next to her, and as she looked sideways, she saw a handsome man. The man was smiling, and his eyes were dazzling like the stars. Me for extra chapters. Helion Yu's face sank as she asked unhappily, "What are you doing here? Grandfather Tian Yu doesn't want to see you again." Feng Lianqing was speechless. His lips twitched. He was used to being pestered by Helion Yu in the past, and now he was somewhat uncomfortable with her sudden coldness. Helion Yu did not say any more. She turned her gaze toward the city gate and saw a familiar figure approaching from afar. Of course, Qing Han was one step ahead of Helion Yu. She was like a small butterfly, pouncing around Feng Ruching. However, she seemed to be much more careful than before. She quickly stopped when she was in front of Feng Ruching, her smile bright, and her eyes shining like stars. "Yes." Feng Ruching smiled and squeezed little Qing Han's small face. "I'm back." Fu Chan stood obediently at the side. He finally realized something when he saw that Feng Ruching had brought Xiaoyu back. Chapter 1692. Feng Lianking's Sadness IX. It seems that Feng Lianyi is from the Duan family, and Tang Yin really has some connections with them. Feng Ruching raised her eyes and saw Helion Yu's excited face, her smile fading. "I've already told grandfather not to tell you about today. I didn't want you to come out and pick us." "Xiao Qing," Helion Yu smiled. "When you were not around these past few days, the little prince and I have taken good care of your herbs garden, and we've cleaned it." "Well, that's good." Feng Ruching smiled faintly. "Come on, let's go back." Feng Lianqing had prepared many things to say to Feng Ruqing and Tianya, but both just walked past him without even looking at him. Feng Lianqing was a little anxious and hurriedly shouted, "Master, Sister Ruqing." Feng Ruqing is Master's granddaughter, so there's nothing wrong with calling her Sister Ruqing, right? I don't think Master will beat me for this. Feng Ruqing stopped in her tracks and turned back, surprised to see Feng Lianqing. Huh, so you're here too? Feng Lianqing was speechless. He had been standing there for half a day, and Feng Ruqing had not even noticed his presence. How pathetic was he? If you have anything to say it later. Tianya was cold. I'm tired now, all right, Master. Feng Lianqing ran up, looking like a lapdog. Master, Sister Ruqing, do you have anything you need me to get for you? No, get out of here. Oh, then. Sister Ruqing, they'll hold this fox for you. It looks quite heavy. Helian Yu stared at him in silence. She was a bit anxious and flew to Feng Ruqing's side. Xiaoqing, I can help you. I've been doing farm work these days, so I'm stronger than him. He definitely can't hold this fox. Sister Ruqing, although I don't do farm work, am stronger than Yuer. Besides, Yuer is a girl. It's not good to tire her out. Let me hold it. These two people continued to argue, but no one saw the red fox's face darkening. What did they mean when they said it was heavy? Did they despise it? Of course, the red fox could see how Feng Ruqing had treated Helian Yu, so it would not make a move against Helian Yu. Therefore, it barked and pounced on Feng Lianqing, leaving a scratch on a man's face. Me for extra chapters. The red fox returned to Feng Ruqing's arms. It licked its paws and sneered at the stunned Feng Lianqing. Well, it's actually a little heavy. Feng Ruqing's words were like a thunderbolt from the clear sky, striking the red fox and causing it to stiffen. Slowly, it lowered its head in frustration. Have I really gained some weight? What if Luo Li doesn't like it? What should I do? No, I need to lose weight. Take it. Feng Ruqing threw the little fox in her arms to Feng Lianqing. Feng Lianqing was filled with joy. Is Sister Ruqing willing to forgive me? Xiaoqing. Helian Yu turned to Feng Ruqing with eyes full of sorrow. Feng Ruqing touched her small head and said, "It's too heavy, so it's better to let Feng Lianqing hold it." This sentence made Helian Yu instantly smile with joy, and the smile on her face grew increasingly brighter. Chapter 1693. Feng Lianqing's sadness X. Alright. She knew that Xiaoqing would not easily forgive him. Feng Lianqing was so protective of Feng Lianqing back then, so he deserved to be treated like this. Tianya cleared his throat and glanced at Feng Lianqing coldly. Qing'er, initially, I wanted to introduce this brat to you and marry you to him. Who knew this brat was actually a jerk? Fortunately, I've seen his stupid true face earlier. That's why I didn't make such a decision. Feng Ruqing was slightly shocked. Grandfather, don't let Nan Xian know that. Why? Is that kid still going to beat me up? Well, he won't hurt you. However, he would not let her sleep with him. The little snake in Feng Ruqing's arms stretched out its small head. I must tell Master about this. The one named Feng Lianqing is a bad guy. Poor Feng Lianqing did not know that he would be killed because of a joke Tianya made General Manor. Tianya's army was already standing at the entrance to greet her. The moment Feng Ruqing stepped into the manor, their voices echoed throughout the sky. Welcome, young Lady Feng. Feng Ruqing had officially come to General Manor as the young lady for the first time. She did not need to be introduced by Tianya, because all these people already knew who she was. Sister Ruqing. Feng Lianqing ran over with the little fox in his arms, smilingly. I've already prepared a room for you. He was full of pride as he said this, as if he was asking for a compliment. Feng Ruqing turned to him and smiled. I'm not blaming you. You don't have to treat me like this. After all, when she first met Feng Lianqing, she was still very fond of him. No, I would do this. Master thinks you're angry with me. He won't forgive me. Feng Lianqing was pitiful. I've been with Master for many years. He's like my father, and I don't want to leave him. Feng Ruqing's smile suddenly faded. He's like who? My father. Feng Lianqing was blank. Feng Ruqing's face darkened. Feng Lianqing, if he's your father, then what about me? Me for extra chapters. Feng Lianqing was stunned. In that case, would he not be senior to Feng Ruqing? Sister Ruching, that's not what I meant. As I said, I'm not blaming you. You and Feng Lianyi grew up together since childhood. You valued your love and loyalty, so saying a few words for her didn't affect me. Moreover, you never forced me to forgive her. In fact, Feng Lianyi had not done anything wrong. She understood that it was tough to cut contact with a close friend who had grown up with him since childhood. It was already extremely hard for Feng Lianyi to do so. It's not me you're hurting, it's you error. That girl liked you since she was young and has risked her life for you to find the spirit herb. She might be too annoying to you, but Feng Ruching laughed. You believed in Feng Lianyi, not her, and that broke her heart. Feng Lianyi was slightly stunned as he lowered his head. Somehow, he felt pain when he recalled the disappointment in Helian Yu's eyes back then. Sister Ruching, I'm sorry. You should feel sorry toward your... not me. Yue is a bit unruly, but she's naive, and people like her will never lie. You should trust her. To Helian Yu, what hurt her was not rejection, but his distrust. Chapter 1694. Helian Ying's grief. Feng Lianyi was startled. He understood that what Feng Ruching said was true, but he fell silent. He had no more words. Feng Ruching had left, and he did not even notice it. He stood there for a long time, lost in his own thoughts. Feng Ruching walked to the backyard and saw Qing Han playing with the red fox. She paused and asked, Qing Han, has State Preceptor returned? Qing Han turned her head and looked at Feng Ruching, confused. Mother, didn't father leave with you? Feng Ruching was silent for a moment. It seems that State Preceptor hasn't returned yet. Mother, Fu Chan turned his gaze toward Feng Ruching. What happened? Why didn't you come back together? Feng Ruching's face darkened, wishing to pull Qing Zhu out and beat it up again. Qing Zhu has left a mark, but maybe State Preceptor didn't recognize it, so he didn't come to me. I'm back now. He should have gotten the news, and he will return to Wushang City soon. Oh. Qing Han blinked and jumped to Feng Ruching's side. Mother, when will grandmother Suyi come? I miss her. Feng Ruching was stunned. This little brat is thinking of Suyi to take her to play and burn this place? A servant suddenly came to the door and said respectfully, Young lady, Manor Lady of the Helian family has come to meet you. Manor Lady of the Helian family? Feng Ruching frowned. Isn't there only Helian Yu in the Helian family? Mother has a worse memory than I do. Little Qing Han raised her small face proudly. There's another person in the Helian family. I don't know her name. Brother Fu Chin told me. He said that person doesn't seem like a good girl. She always looks at Helian Yu evilly, as if she's thinking of something bad. Qing Han was not there back then, but she had found out about it from Fu Chun. She never thought that her mother, who was there, would have forgotten about it. Feng Ruching narrowed her eyes and smirked. Let her in. Yes, young lady. The servant left after receiving her order. A moment later, a woman with light makeup followed the servant in. The woman's face was considered beautiful, or at least the kind that would make a man's heart soften when he looked at her. She looked like a girl from a noble family, soft and gentle. Me for extra chapters. Helianing followed the servant and walked in quickly. She raised her eyes and saw Feng Ruching, who was sitting on the stone bench. She was dressed in red, and her eyes were too similar to Tian Yas. It was no wonder Helian Yu was able to tell at a glance that she had a relationship with Tianya. If she could have met Feng Ruching earlier, perhaps. The one who got the help from Tianya's granddaughter would be her, young Lady Feng. With a slight smile, Helianing wanted to take a seat in front of Feng Ruching. When she met Feng Lianyi, she had also sat in front of him like this, and Feng Lianyi had no complaint about this, even though he sometimes looked a little uncomfortable. Except for this time, she did not understand why he did not even let her in. However, the stone bench exploded before Helianing could sit on it. She was caught off guard and fell to the ground, screaming painfully. With a cup of tea in her hand, Feng Ruching looked at Helianing smilingly. What do you want from me? Chapter 1695. Helian Ying's grief. Helian Ying quickly stood up as if nothing had happened. She turned to the stone bench. Just as she wanted to sit down again, this bench also instantly exploded. There was still something that Hellioning did not understand. At first, she thought it was because of the stone bench, but it had happened twice. It was obvious that someone did not want her to sit. She smiled awkwardly and said, "Young Lady Feng, I heard that young Lady Feng has been taking extra care of you these few days, so I came to thank young Lady Feng." Feng Ruqing raised her eyebrows and stared at Hellioning smilingly, as if she was waiting for her to continue speaking. Hellioning saw the smile, and all the tension in her heart eased a little. Sister Yue has been mischievous and unruly since she was young and must have caused a lot of trouble for young Lady Feng. I came here to apologize on behalf of my sister. She was bugging Master Lianqing before, and even Master Lianqing could not stand her a little. I was worried that young Lady Feng would have some misunderstandings about Sister Yue, so I came to explain on her behalf. Her tone was tinged with helplessness. Sister Yue is always like this. I hope young Lady Feng can understand. Hellioning was unruly and mischievous. On the contrary, she was very gentle and understanding. She had also told Feng Ruqing that Hellioning was always pestering Feng Lianqing, and he did not like it. If Feng Ruqing really cared for Feng Lianqing, she would not have allowed him to marry such a girl. Feng Ruqing tapped the tabletop. Continue. Hellioning saw that Feng Ruqing did not get angry with her. She was happy and became bolder. Young Lady Feng, some time ago, Yue had told me that the young lady of General Manor had extraordinary looks and outstanding talent. However, I was too naive and thought she was talking about Feng Lianqing. Now that I think about it, Feng Lianqing was called Maiden Lianqing, not the young lady. General had missed young Lady Feng so much for a long time. Yue had already recognized young Lady Feng, but didn't say anything about it, and almost caused young Lady Feng to be harmed by a traitor. Yue should not do that to young Lady Feng. Hellioning frowned, looking like she was worried about Feng Ruqing. Feng Ruqing's eyes went blank. I only found out about my relationship with Tianya that day. How did Hellioning already know about it? Hellioning laughed. Young Lady Feng is so elegant, just like General. Even a fool can see that. Suddenly, Feng Ruqing smiled. Her smile was unreadable. All right, all of you can come out now. Me for extra chapters. Hellioning was stunned. She raised her head and was shocked to see a few people coming out of the room. Her face turned pale, and she froze for a moment. Master Lianqing, Hellioning, and grandfather? Why are they all here? Feng Ruqing smiled. Your grandfather came to have tea with my grandfather. Hellioning and Lianqing both went to the city gate to greet me. That's why all of them are here. Hellioning trembled violently and took a few steps back. Her eyes widened in fear. Master Lianqing, shouldn't he be in the study room dealing with some matters for General? Chapter 1696. Hellioning's grief. Grandfather, what brings him to General Manor? Feng Lianqing, did you hear that? Feng Ruqing smiled. She said you were a fool because you didn't recognize me in the first place, but instead, Yue was so smart that she had outsmarted everyone. If this girl was so smart, she wouldn't have been used by others. Without waiting for Feng Lianqing to respond, Hellioning looked at Feng Ruqing sadly. What does Shao Qing mean? Am I not smart enough? What do you think? Feng Ruqing smiled, but for a moment, it made Hellioning's heart sink. I'm smart, and he'll get smarter from now on. That's the only way Shao Qing will not kick me out. Hellioning's face turned pale. Her voice trembled as she spoke. Master Lianqing, I didn't mean that. I didn't enough. Old Master Hellioning snapped and pointed at Hellioning angrily. You're very well behaved in front of me. I never thought that you're so jealous of Yue. If I hadn't heard all this, I wouldn't even have known how you're making up stories about your sister out there. Hellioning panicked and took a step forward, but a red fox stopped her. This red fox stared at her with eerie eyes, frightening her into taking a few steps back. Her face grew paler. Grandfather, I didn't. You have to trust me. I didn't mean any harm to my sister. Hellioning, do you think I'm stupid? What did you just say? What do you mean Hellioning is pestering Master Lianqing, and that he hates her? You're saying this as if my Yue is not welcomed. Hellioning was dumbfounded. She bit her lips hard, tears flowing down her face. How could grandfather forget that I'm also his granddaughter? Why does he have only Hellion Yu in his heart? You accuse Yuer, saying she already knew young Lady Feng's identity and deliberately tried to get close to her? I know Yuer more than anyone else. She would never have such a thought and would never hurt someone who cares about her. Old Master Helion's eyes were full of anger as he snapped at her in a stern voice. His words stabbed deep into Hellion Ying's heart. She closed her eyes slowly. Hellion, you has never had such a thought? Me for extra chapters. Why is only Hellion Yu important to grandfather? Hellion Ying. Feng Lianking's face was expressionless and cold. I rejected you or not because I hate her. I just want to focus on my cultivation. I didn't want to be disturbed by love, and I didn't want to give her hope. That was why I did that to her, but as for you, I simply don't like you. Initially, he could not say whether he liked or disliked Hellion Ying. When he met her, he would not act like a stranger, but neither would he talk to her like a good friend. However, after she said those words in front of him at Feng Lianya's banquet, he started to hate her. If he had known that Hellion Ying was this kind of person, he would never treat her as a friend and would have stayed away from her long ago. Hellion Ying's heart raced faster, and what made her feel sadder than old Master Helion's words was Feng Lianking's last sentence. I simply don't like you. Chapter 1697. Hellion Ying's grief. He said that he rejected Hellion Yu for goodness sake. But as for me, he simply doesn't like me. Hellion Ying's tears fell like spring water. Her eyes reddened, and suddenly, she laughed out loud like a crazy woman. All of you only care for Hellion Yu. What about me? First it was father, then grandfather, and now Master Lianqing. You never think about my feelings. Even young Lady Feng of General Manor plotted against me for Hellion Yu. But Hellion Yu owes me. She owes my mother and me, and shall never be able to pay it back in this lifetime. Hellion Ying glared at Hellion Yu with eyes full of hatred. Hellion Yu's face turned pale as she seemed to know what Hellion Ying was going to say. She bit her lips and shouted, "You shut up, shut up." One was someone she had once liked, and one was someone she liked now. She must not let Hellion Ying say anything about this. Otherwise, how could she face them in the future? She did not care what the people of Wushang City thought about her, but she did care about someone after all. Hellion Yu, you look so scared. So I'm going to reveal your identity to everyone now. Hellion Ying laughed wildly. Mother is afraid that grandfather will be angry, so she doesn't allow me to mention this in front of him. But if grandfather is so biased, why should I care if he is alive or died? If Yuqin was present, she would probably be so scared and might have knocked Hellion Ying unconscious with a stick. She just wanted to make Hellion Ying hate her father, Hellion Yufei, as much as she did. She also wanted Hellion Ying to know that they no longer owed Hellion Yu anything, and it should be Hellion Yu who owed them. However, she never thought that her daughter would dig a grave for them in public. What are you babbling about? Old Master Hellion was a little confused and mad. When has Yuer wronged you? It's you and your mother who owe her her true identity. I'm her grandfather. I know this more clearly than anyone else. Hellion Ying sneered. You're only fooling yourself. I heard that you favored that bitch, Tian, and have always been cold to my mother, so it's not impossible for you to deceive everyone for her. Hellion Yu was furious and pounced upon Hellion Ying, baring her teeth and nails like a wild animal. Who are you calling sluts? You and your mother are the ones who are sluts. Don't curse my mother. Hellion Ying's words had triggered Hellion Yu. Back then, she had borrowed the Hellion family's soldiers and beat up all the young masters of Wushang City. That was because those people had called her an orphan. After that time, no one dared to bully her like that again. Me for extra chapters. When they saw her, they were afraid and terrified and simply ran away. So, she never heard the word orphan again, and today, she would not allow anyone to insult her mother. No matter what happened to her mother, she would always be the best person in Hellion Yu's heart. Hellion Ying's face was left with bloody marks. Hellion Yu also tore her clothes. Her hair was messy, and she had a few wounds on her skin. Feng Lianqing was somewhat dumbfounded. He looked at Hellion Yu in shock, trembling. Is a woman's fight always this terrifying? You're not using any spiritual energy, and we're just pulling with your bare hands? Ha ha! Hellion Yu, aren't you just afraid that I'll say it out loud? You're a bitch born by a bitch. My father has been good to you since you were a child and has asked me to be nice to you, saying that our family owes you. In the end, it's you who owes us. You're just a bitch born by my father and Tion Tion. Chapter 1698. Hellion Ying's grief v. Hellion Yu was filled with hate and anger. Her eyes were red as she pulled Hellion Ying's hair viciously. Say it again in front of Shao Qing, and he'll kill you. Hellion Ying sneered as she looked at Hellion Yu coldly. Old Master Hellion was already furious, and Hellion Ying's words only made his blood boil. He rushed straight at Hellion Ying and pushed Hellion Yu to Feng Rooking's side. Who told you that? Who has slandered my granddaughter? Hellion Ying wiped the corners of her mouth and stood up straight. My mother told me that. Old Master Hellion was so furious. My second son and daughter-in-law loved each other, and they have nothing to do with you, Fei. That woman Yuqin tried every possible way to harm Tion Tion, and now she won't even let a dead person go peacefully. She's still spreading rumors like this to ruin her reputation. Oh, Hellion Ying sneered. Of course, it's hard for you to admit it in front of so many people. Grandfather, have you forgotten that I'm also your granddaughter? You're so biased. Old Master Hellion closed his eyes, and only a short while later did he open them again, but the anger in his eyes had not faded. Do you know why I've favored you ever since childhood? It's not only because she has no parents. Hellion Ying smiled coldly. It's your mother who had always hurt Tion Tion back then. Tion Tion never like your father, but your mother repeatedly harmed Tion Tion because your father once loved her. In the end, Tion Tion saved Yuqin, who fell into the hands of the Hellion family's enemies, and the couple both lost their lives because of that incident. Feng Lianqing frowned. He did not know about this matter. He only knew that Hellion Yu had lost her parents, but he did not know how her parents had died. Me for extra chapters. Even Hellion Yu, who was filled with anger just now, slowly raised her head. Her eyes fell upon the old man's face, and tears flowed down her cheeks as she gave a loud cry. Did grandfather mean that? Mother had not betrayed father? Am not uncle's daughter, and I don't owe Hellion Ying anything? Hellion Yu was relieved, but she still could not feel any happier. She had never thought that a person could be so vicious that they would go so far as to slander a person who had passed away. Your father doesn't know one thing, but I had already found out about it back then. It was your mother who wanted to kill Tion Tion. She went to the enemy secretly to ally with them, but they used her back to threaten the Hellion family. As soon as Old Master Hellion thought of those past events, grief and anger surged in his heart. I shouldn't be so kind and let such a scourge like your mother stay in the Hellion family after you were born back then. I have almost harmed my granddaughter again because of a person who doesn't have any blood relation to the Hellion family. Doesn't have any blood relation to the Hellion family? What are you talking about, grandfather? Hellion Yu is also dumbfounded. She doesn't have any blood relation to the Hellion family? Old Master Hellion sneered. Your uncle, Hellion Yu Fei, is not my son. Your grandmother was a widow back then. I ran into her house to escape from the enemy. I happened to see her bathing, and she saw me. As a man, I should be responsible for that, so I married her. Hellion Yu Fei is the one she brought to the Hellion family. Only General knows about this matter. Chapter 1699. Hellion Ying's death. Hellion Ying stumbled a few steps back, as if she could not handle such a blow. No, no. She bit her lips hard, tears flowing down her cheeks. I don't believe it. Am I not your granddaughter? I don't believe it. You can go back and ask your mother about this matter. She knows exactly what's going on. Old Master Hellion closed his eyes in sorrow. Perhaps only now did he understand that he should not have been soft-hearted that fateful day. Even if he did not kill Yuqin, he should have driven her out of the Hellion family. Perhaps then, Hellion Ying would not have become as vicious as her mother. In this matter, Yu Fei is indeed at fault. He still felt guilt about Hellion Yu's parents, So he gave all his time to you. He neglected you, causing you to follow your mother to turn out like this. Old Master Helion opened his eyes that now were filled with determination. I will punish her when I return, but he paused for a moment and continued. You and your mother can no longer stay in the Helion family. Helioning froze and stared at Old Master Helion in disbelief. Grandfather is kicking me out? Why? Even though they had no blood relation, she had lived in the Helion family for so many years after all, and he had dared say he wanted to disown her? No, grandfather, you can't drive me away. Helion Ying's eyes flashed with panic. Her face turned pale as she threw herself at Old Master Helion, holding his thigh with both hands. He'll die outside if you drive me away. Grandfather, please. I know I was wrong. All these years, no one dared to bully her because she was the young lady of the Helion family. However, if she was kicked out, she would lose her social standings and many people would bully her. That was why even if she died, she would never leave the Helion family. Me for extra chapters. Helioning, Old Master Helion sighed. I was the one who asked your mother to stay, which led to this drama. Do you think I would still keep you with me? You and your mother no longer have anything to do with the Helion family. Go away, and I will tell the public that you have gone to the mountains to recuperate from an illness. Helioning was startled. She stared at Old Master Helion blankly, slowly releasing her hand and standing up. Grandfather, I've been in the Helion family for so many years. Have you ever treated me as your granddaughter? Old Master Helion frowned. What do you mean by that? If I haven't been treating you as my granddaughter, do you think you would have been treated so well in the Helion family? Ha ha ha. Helion Ying's gaze was lunatic, her eyes bloodshot as she sneered. No. You only have Helion you in your heart. So what if my father is not your son? You're so biased that in the end, it's me and my mother's fault. That bitch Tion deserves to die. It's good that she is dead. Great. Ha ha ha. Helion you went crazy and rushed toward Helioning again. You're the bitch. He'll rip your mouth off and see if he can still curse my mother. This matter was no longer something that Feng Ruqing could interfere with. After all, it was someone else's family affairs. Therefore, she was just watching the show from the sidelines from beginning to the end. Suddenly, she saw a flash of light, and when she looked sideways, she saw that Helioning had already grabbed a dagger and was about to stab Helion Yu. Chapter 1700. Helion Ying's death. 2. Feng Ruqing's expression changed dramatically. She flicked her fingers, and spiritual energy directly struck upon the dagger in Helion Ying's hand. The dagger shook violently and fell to the ground, emitting a faint vibrating sound. General Manor's courtyard became silent. Helion Yu was shocked. She stopped and stared at Helion Ying's pale face in front of her. Helioning bit her lips and stared at Feng Ruqing with a gaze that was filled with hatred. If eyes were like daggers, Feng Ruqing would have already been shredded into a million pieces. How dare you? The old master Helion rose in rage and punched Helion Ying's chest. Helion Ying was sent flying a few steps back before falling to the ground in a heap, spurting out a mouthful of blood. She sneered. It was a pity. She had thought she could stab Helion Yu, but someone was faster than her and had saved Helion Yu. Feng Ruqing walked up to Helion Ying expressionlessly and bent down to pick up the dagger that had fallen to the ground. She then pointed it at Helion Ying's chest. Helion Ying felt the chill. Her body shivered and subconsciously wanted to move backward. Feng Ruqing did not give her a chance, and in a flash, the dagger had stabbed into her chest. Blood flowed from her chest, staining her lapels red, and her eyes were wide opened. Old Master Helion trembled and closed his eyes as if he was somewhat unwilling to watch. After pulling the dagger out, Feng Ruqing turned around to face Old Master Helion. With people who hold grudges like her, there are only the choices of her being dead or Helion Yu being dead. There is no third choice. I don't care how others choose, but I will only let Helion Yu live. So she must die? Helion Ying and Duan Xiong's situation was different. She left Duan Xiong to live because Duan Xiong did not hold a grudge in his heart, and he had to repent for his mistakes for the rest of his life, so he could only live. Me for extra chapters. If she were alive, she would always try to take revenge on Hellion Yu. Therefore, only one of them was destined to survive in this world. Old Master Hellion did not speak for a long time. After all, he had raised her since childhood, and now that she was dead, it was impossible for him not to feel anything at all. However, the old man was a wise man. He knew that what Feng Ruqing said was true. The two sisters, Hellion Yu and Hellion Ying, were not destined to live together. As such, he naturally hoped that it would be Hellion Yu who would live, not to mention that it was Hellion Ying who made the first move in trying to kill his granddaughter. What my granddaughter said is true. Tianya stepped forward slowly. So what if we have raised them since childhood? If that woman Feng Leonie dares to touch my granddaughter, I'd like to kill her myself. And the one at fault in this matter was Hellion Ying. Her heart was only filled with jealousy and hatred. Otherwise, she wouldn't have ended up in such a situation. Old Master Hellion sighed and laughed bitterly. I understand. I just can't bear to do it, but there's always someone who can do it for me. It was indeed her fault, and there's no one to blame except her. It's good that you can think like that, and you should teach your son a lesson. How could he leave Hellion Ying to Yu Qin's care as child? She behaves like this only because of him. Is he really a father? He didn't discipline her and has gotten Hellion Ying into this situation. Chapter 1701. Hellion Ying's death. Tianya frowned. The corners of Old Master Helion's mouth moved slightly, but he did not speak in the end. It wasn't just Hellion Yufei, but I should be blamed too. Just because Hellion Ying had always been so good and obedient in front of him, he rarely paid attention to her, and he did not even know when she had become so wicked like her mother. If he and Yufei had given her more attention since childhood and not allowed Yu Qin to take care of her, would all of these end differently? No. There was one thing that Old Master Hellion forgot. Human nature would never change. Hellion Ying loved Feng Lianqing, so the same thing would still happen, and she would repeat the same mistake that her mother had made back then. Yinger. Yu Qin perhaps had sensed something terrible and hurriedly ran in through the door. Her eyes reddened when she saw Hellion Ying, who had fallen in a pool of blood. She cried and rushed toward Hellion Ying's corpse like a madwoman. Hellion Yufei, who arrived afterward, could not comfort her no matter how hard he tried. Yinger, with a hissing, grief-stricken voice, she turned furiously to Old Master Hellion, questioning him. Father, Yinger is your granddaughter. Yes, she doesn't have any blood relation with you, but you've watched her grow up since she was a child. How can you do this to her? Hellion Yufei could not accept this fact. He stumbled a few times, looking at the old man incredulously. Father, why? Tears flowed from his eyes, and he was unable to stand still. After all, Hellion Ying was his daughter. How could he not love her? Now, as he watched Hellion Ying in a pool of blood, his heart felt like it was being stung, making him gradually close his eyes. Why? Ask your beloved wife. She accused you and Tian in front of Yinger, saying that Yuer is your daughter. Hellion Yufei was shocked. He turned to look at Yu Qin and clenched his fists tightly, trembling violently as if there was a strong storm brewing within him. Moreover, Hellion Ying had just tried to attack Yuer. I was the one who killed Hellion Ying to save Yuer. Old Master Hellion had regained his calmness and had taken everything into his own hands. He could abandon Yu Qin and Hellion Ying, but his feelings for Hellion Yufei, his adopted son, were clearly deeper. Me for extra chapters. He did not want Hellion Yufei to offend Feng Ruqing for Hellion Ying, so he would take responsibility for Hellion Ying's death. Hellion Yufei trembled as he looked at Yu Qin with resentment in his eyes. Yu Qin! Yu Qin's face was pale as she hugged Hellion Ying in her arms tightly, her eyes bloodshot. Hellion Yufei, are you even a man? Your daughter has been killed, and you're yelling at me here, not avenging her death? Yinger died because of you. Who made you talk nonsense in front of Yinger? You were the one who killed her. Hellion Yufei walked up to Yu Qin and grabbed her lapels, forcibly pulling her up from the ground. Helian Ying's body fell to the cold ground again, the scent of blood permeating the air. Don't you realize what you've done? Yu Qin snapped angrily. What did I say wrong? You once had an affair with Tian Tian. Yinger, your daughter, has the right to know everything. Chapter 1702. Helian Ying's death, 4-inch shut up. Helian Yufei slapped Yu Qin's face with such a force that made her face swell. His hand was shaking with anger. You still don't know what you've done wrong. If Yu Qin had not incited her daughter with such things, Helian Ying would not have come to General Manor, and she would not have said those kinds of words in front of his father, infuriating him. Even more so, she would not have attacked Yuer, and her grandfather would not have killed her by mistake. It was all Yu Qin's fault. Have I done anything wrong, Helian Yufei? I've suffered a lot in my life marrying you. What have I done wrong? You only had that bitch Tian Tian in your heart before, and now you only cared about Helian Yu. Yu Qin's hair was messy, and her fearless gaze was fixed upon Helian Yufei. She sneered and said, I've done nothing wrong. She did not know where she found the strength to push Helian Yufei away, laughing. Yinger is gone, and she will be bullied by that bitch in that world. Helian Yufei, you can't protect your daughter. I'll protect her myself. Ha ha ha. Yu Qin drew her sword in her hand quickly and dragged it across her neck. Blood flowed from her neck, painting the scenery red. Helian Yufei was stunned. He did not expect Yu Qin to end up like this. Yu Qin's lips still curved ironically, and her body collapsed to the ground with a crash, breathing slowly before completely going silent. Seeing this scene, Helian Yufei's throat was a little dry, and he suddenly became unable to say anything, staring blankly at Yu Qin, who had fallen to the ground. He lost his senses for a long time. Yufei buried them properly. Old Master Helian frowned, and he sighed softly. They came to the Helian family, now that they're gone. Let them go with some decency. Yu Qin was dead. There was another reason why he did not punish Yu Qin back then. His son and daughter-in-law had traded their lives to save Yu Qin, and he did not want them to sacrifice in vain. So he had allowed her to remain in the Helian family. As he thought about it now, he felt like he had made a big mistake back then. General, I'm a little tired. Yuer, you accompany me back to rest. Yes, grandfather. Helian Yu nodded and went to old Master Helian's side. Me for extra chapters. When she was about to leave, she turned back to Feng Ruqing and said, Xiao Qing, Feng Lianqing is a bad guy. Don't be friends with him. He's a hypocrite. Feng Lianqing was dumbfounded. Oh, and I'm still going to take care of the herb garden for you. After all, you can't leave the little prince alone, or he'll eat everything in your garden. Helian Yu snorted. Feng Ruqing was stunned. She frowned. The little prince has eaten all of my spear herbs? She smiled coldly. Little Qing Han stood next to Feng Ruqing, and after seeing her smile, she could not help but shudder. Mother looks so scary right now. It's like someone is about to get it bad. You should go back too. Tianya looked at Helian Yufei coldly. Clean up my yard before all this blood irritates my beloved granddaughter's eyes. Chapter 1703. Nancian is back. When Feng Ruqing rushed back to her garden, she found that her garden was indeed missing quite a few spear herbs. Her face darkened, and she flew into the palace, picking up the little prince and beating him severely. The entire palace was filled with the sounds of the little prince crying and wailing, but the emperor turned a blind eye as if he did not see anything. After Feng Ruqing beat the little prince up, she went back to General Manor, and from afar, she saw a man in white robes, like a fairy, walking toward General Manor. She quickly went up to the man happily. State Preceptor. The man was about to step into the manor when he suddenly heard a voice from behind him. He slowly turned his head to catch the woman pouncing on him. He moved carefully, fearing that he would hurt the child in her womb. You just returned to Wushang City. Yes. The man smiled faintly. I went after her, but she ran off into the Nan family's territory. I lost track of her, so I came back. Nancian. Feng Ruqing was silent for a moment. Did you find anything different along the way? What? Nancian frowned. Like, something on Qingzhu. Qingzhu. Nansien loosened his brow. Did someone rip off its skin? But I did not see its skin along the way. Qing Zhua just crawled out of the door, but after hearing this, it shrank its neck back in fear and left without looking back. Its figure disappeared in a flash, as if there was a ghost chasing it. No, Feng Ruqing smiled. Nansien, let's go back and rest first. Oh, we have to bring a Hua and the others to General Manor. All right. Nansien's gentle gaze fell upon Feng Ruqing as if she was his whole world. 3 months passed by in a flash. Everyone in General Manor was extremely nervous, especially Tianya, who had ordered a servant to follow Feng Ruqing all day long. She was not allowed to go out freely or use her spiritual qi again for fear of hurting the child in her belly. However, since that night, the child was calm and never troubled her again. She did not feel any discomfort when she was close to the delivery. Me for extra chapters. Hellion Yu happily held a bowl of soup that she brewed. When she walked out of Hellion Manor, she bumped into a young girl and almost fell. Hellion Yu's face was cold. This was a soup she had made for Xiao Qing, and even Feng Lianqing had not tasted it. Of course, Hellion Yu had once made a pot of soup for Feng Lianqing, but he had never tasted it before. Hey! Hellion Yu raised her eyes in anger and saw a young girl with a delicate and lovely face. The young girl was very short, even shorter than her. She was quite beautiful, and Hellion Yu felt that she was somewhat familiar. It seemed as if she had seen her somewhere before. Young lady, Xiao Xiao quietly pulled Hellion Yu's sleeve. Young lady, this girl looks slightly similar to Feng Lianyi. However, Feng Lianyi seemed somewhat heroic due to her years of warfare, while this girl, she looked like a young lady from a noble family. Hellion Yu's face became gloomy as she heard Feng Lianyi's name. She glared at the young girl, fiercely. Are you blind? Can't you see me? Chapter 1704. Nansien is back too. Hearing this, the servant next to the young girl stepped forward, annoyed. You're the one who is blind. My young lady was walking in her path, and you didn't look where you were going and bumped into her. How dare you? Xiao Xiao ran out and blocked Hellion Yu, pointing at the servant in front of her and saying angrily, You're the ones who bumped into my young lady. It's your fault. The young girl raised her pretty eyebrows as if she was dissatisfied. Qianning, why are you talking nonsense with them? We have more important things to do. It had been a long time since she had seen Xiao Qing. There were so many demonic sluts out there. What if Xiao Qing had someone else out there? Qianning pursed her lips. Wait until we've found Maiden Feng, and we'll settle scores with both of you. Tang Yin glared at Hellion Yu fiercely before leaving. She turned around and walked in the direction of General Manor without turning back. She had heard about General Tianya along the way. People said that Tianya had met her granddaughter some time ago, and everyone in Wushang City knew about this. Therefore, she had asked them the way to General Manor. Tang Yin blushed at the thought that she would be able to see Feng Ruqing later on. Her heart beat faster, and she stroked her cheeks somewhat shyly. Qianning, am I getting thinner these past few months? Xiao Qing doesn't like skinny people. What, she doesn't like me if I'm skinny? And if I didn't wash my face today, will Xiao Qing dislike me? Qianning was speechless. She was tempted to tell her young lady that, you've gained a lot of weight. Fortunately, Tang Yin had already asked for directions before. She followed the directions those people pointed her to, and from afar, she saw the General Manor sign standing prominently. Her eyes lit up with excitement. Tang Yin stopped in front of the gate. She eased her excitement and tried to go forward when a cold, angry voice suddenly came from the side. Why are you two following us? Me for extra chapters. Tang Yin froze. She turned to the side and saw the girl and her servant, who had bumped into her just now, standing next to her. You followed us. Qianning rushed out menacingly. She crossed her hands and raised her chin arrogantly. Why are you following my young lady? Ridiculous, Xiao Xiao snorted. My young lady doesn't even know you, so why would she follow you? Tang Yin and Hellion Yu remained silent, staring hard at each other. The atmosphere in front of General Manor grew tense. Suddenly, a voice broke the silence. Hellion Yu, why have you come again? My master will take care of Princess, so you don't have to worry about it. Be careful. My master might ask your grandfather to marry you off. Qing Zhu shook its small head and crawled out of the gate. It turned around, and its gaze fell upon a familiar face. It froze, its eyes widening as it looked at the little girl standing in front of the gate in horror. It quickly crawled into the courtyard, screaming horrifyingly, "Master, your enemy is here. Your rival has come to steal your woman. Throw her out." Initially, Tang Yin was still smiling and wanted to greet Qing Zhu, but after hearing its words, her face stiffened and she froze again. Chapter 1705. The Sun is a Foundling. Tang Yin's expression changed dramatically when she saw a young woman in a red dress walking out of the courtyard. Her eyes were filled with joy as she pounced toward Feng Ruqing. However, she had not gotten close to Feng Ruqing before a fierce gust of wind blew, sending her falling to the ground. She pouted and looked at Feng Ruqing pitifully. "Xiaoyin, what brings you here?" Feng Ruqing frowned. She then turned to Helian Yu, who was standing outside the gate. "Did you two come together?" Helian Yu's face darkened as she glared at Tang Yin and turned to Feng Ruqing back. She smiled and quickly walked over to her. "Xiaoqing, I made soup for you. It's good for your health." Oh, Feng Ruqing could not refuse Helian Yu's good intentions. She also happened to be hungry, so she took the bowl of soup and handed it to the servant next to her. Tang Yin was dumbfounded. Her eyes widened as she looked at Helian Yu and Feng Ruqing together, and suddenly, she cried out loud like a big baby. "When Gu Yi and I are not by Xiaoqing's side, she already has a new lover and no longer wants us." "Young lady," Qian Ning tugged on Tang Yin's sleeve. "Maybe if there are more women around Maiden Feng, she'll be able to give up that wild man for all of you." Tang Yin's eyes lit up, surprisingly feeling that Qian Ning's words made a lot of sense. "We've to unite to beat that vixen." "Xiaoyin, why have you come alone? Where's my cousin? Isn't he supposed to be protecting you?" "Oh," Tang Yin chuckled. "Your cousin doesn't know I left home, but I've left letters for them." Feng Ruqing raised her eyebrows. "How did you get here?" "The White Phoenix told me how to get here." Tang Yin raised her small head, answering honestly. However, she would not tell Feng Ruqing that they had threatened the White Phoenix with its secret to get the information from it. "You were—" Feng Ruqing turned to look at Helian Yu. "You go my grandfather first. I have something to discuss with Xiaoyin." Helian Yu froze. However, she was always used to being obedient in front of Feng Ruqing, so after hearing her words, she still nodded obediently. "All right, Xiaoyin, you come with me." Feng Ruqing smiled faintly and turned to the servant behind her. "Call Xiaoya for me." "Xiaoya?" Tang Yin was lost. "Xiaoya is also with Xiaoqing?" Me for extra chapters. Even though she had only had a few encounters with Xiaoya, she somehow had a good feeling about her. That kind of fondness was innate, and it was not because that time Xiaoya had risked her life to save Tang Yin. Qing and Xian naturally understood what Feng Ruqing was going to do. He stroked her hair and said, "When I go back, it'll brew some phoenix soup for you." Feng Ruqing stroked her chin. "That phoenix has bad intentions towards Suyi and wants to be your father. It is indeed better to make a bowl of soup out of it." If they were in Songyu mainland, no one would have dared to bully Tang Yin, and she could cultivate peacefully. However, this was land of no return. It was dangerous here. It was simply impossible for Tang Yin to cultivate peacefully when she had come to land of no return. Chapter 1706. The Sun is a Foundling. Once she made a breakthrough, she would attract countless people to compete. If she was not careful, the enemy might take her away. Then, the White Phoenix would be blamed. In the backyard. No one was allowed to step foot in the backyard because of Feng Ruqing's command. In this noisy general manner, the backyard was the only quiet place. Xiaoya hurriedly ran over, and she immediately saw the young girl standing in front of Feng Ruqing. Tears flowed down her cheeks, and she covered her mouth tightly to prevent herself from crying out loud. Tang Yin seemed to have sensed something and turned around. She frowned as her gaze fell upon Xiaoya. "Xiaoya, the Duan family no longer exists. There's no need for you, and Xiao Yin hide it. Feng Ruqing stood up. Her red dress moved in the wind like a fire engulfing her. Tang Yin's eyes turned to Feng Ruqing as she looked at her blankly. Xiao Qing, what do you mean by that? The Duan family? What do you mean there's no need to hide? Xiao Yin. Feng Ruqing smiled faintly and raised her hand to hold Tang Yin's hand. The young girl's hand was cold at the moment. Xiao Yin. Feng Ruqing continued. Since you've come today, there are things you must face, and you have a right to know. Xiao Qing, I don't understand what you're saying. Tang Yin was about to cry from the burning anger, her eyes tearful and pitiful as she looked at Feng Ruqing. Xiao Yin, do you remember the second master of the Tang family? Your father? Feng Ruqing asked in a deep voice. Tang Yin's heart grew heavy whenever someone brought up the Tang family. Well, I remember. He was the one who treated me well in the Tang family. Oh, the elder was also nice to me. Feng Ruqing raised her eyes to stare intently at Tang Yin and continued. Then, have you ever wondered why you only have your father and no mother? Tang Yin was stunned. Her mind was blank. Father said that my mother died while giving birth to me, and that is why I only have him and no mother. Feng Ruqing sighed. Xiao Yin, actually, the second master of the Tang family was never married. He brought you home and said that he had married a wife outside to avoid any bad rumors. You are not his biological daughter. This sentence, like a thunderbolt, struck Tang Yin's mind. She trembled, and she looked at Feng Ruqing incredulously. Xiao Qing, what are you talking about? Am not my father's daughter. Me for extra chapters. Impossible. She was the Tang family's young lady, the daughter of the second master. She was brought home from the outside. Tang Yin bit her lip hard. Her beautiful face turned pale. She shook her head vigorously and took a few steps back. Xiao Qing, you are lying to me, aren't you? If I was picked up from somewhere, then who are my real parents? Why did they abandon me? Am I not cute enough for them? Tears flowed from Tang Yin's eyes, and her voice was tinged with despair and grief. Xiaoyu felt a stinging pain in her heart. She wanted to go up to the young girl and tell her that she would never abandon her. But she was afraid. She was afraid that Tang Yin might not accept her because of her condition right now, and she did not know how to face her daughter. Chapter 1707. The Sun is a Foundling 3 Xiao Yin. Feng Ruqing raised her hand and touched Xiao Yin's head gently. She did not plan to tell Tang Yin all these things this soon. However, too many things had happened and might bring danger to Tang Yin. She was unwilling to let Tang Yin bear these things. She just wanted this young girl to live her life without any worries. However, now that she had chosen to come to land of no return, she would have to face it all. Otherwise, Tang Yin would still be in danger. Xiao Yin, the elder came to me back then after you've left the Tang family. Feng Ruqing smiled bitterly. He told me this, and Mu Ling suddenly wanted you because he already knew your identity from somewhere. She looked at Feng Ruqing. Her eyes widened. My identity? Am I so powerful? So will I be able to defeat that vixen, Nan Xian, in the future? Feng Ruqing looked a little confused. Tang Yin's mood changes so fast, quite powerful. It can make many people in the world want to go after you. That's why the person in the Tang family sealed your power in the first place. However, that person is gone now, and once you've finished your cultivation, many people will come to trouble you. Tang Yin was stunned, then cried out, Won't I be miserable then? Well, it's a bit tragic. Initially, when you were in Songyu mainland, no one would have the guts to bother you. However, this is land of no return. There are many strong people here who dare to bother you. At first, she wanted to wait until all her affairs were settled, and when no one in this world dared to touch her people, she would let Tang Yin come over to meet her mother. Unfortunately, Tang Yin had come over on her own accord. Tang Yin cried. It's all because of the White Phoenix. It made me come here. Xiao Qing, what do those people want to arrest me for? Do they want me to be their punching bag? Feng Ruqing looked at Tang Yin's crying face seriously. To be their slave. They will use your body to speed up their cultivation. Slave? Tang Yin was stunned. She remembered that she had once read about it in a forbidden book, and this thought made her face turn pale. I want to go back. I want to go back. The men here are horrible. I want to go home. Me for extra chapters. Feng Ruching looked at Tang Yin and said, Do you think my grandfather and I would stay here for so long if we knew how to go back? It's not a place where you can come and go as you wish. Tang Yin blinked, tears flowing again. She cried out loudly at the thought of all those disgusting men watching her. Why me? I don't want to be a slave. Her cries were filled with despair. Why did such a tragic thing have to happen to her? Xiao Ya's lips twitched as she lowered her head in guilt. If she had not married a human, Ener would not have been born as a beast man, and she would not be hunted by so many people. Moreover, if Ener knew that it was because of her that she had become so miserable, would she still be willing to accept Xiaoya as her mother? Feng Ruching looked at Xiaoya, who had her head lowered and naturally understood her heart's worry. Chapter 1708. The sun is a foundling ivy. However, she believed that Xiao Yin had a soft heart, and this matter was not Xiao Ya's fault. Xiao Yin could not blame her mother. Xiao Yin, this is the reason why I came to talk to you alone today. Feng Ruching's expression was serious. Next, no matter what I say, you must remain calm. Tang Yin's legs were a little weak. So, you did not make your main point just now? There's something else? And she said she wanted to see me alone. But why is Xiaoya here? Does this matter also involve Xiaoya? Tang Yin said pitifully, Xiao Qing, if you have something to say, just say it quickly. Please don't scare me. I can't stand it. Well, it's nothing. Many people want you because you are a beast man. Beast? Beast man? Tang Yin was dumbfounded. She lifted her small face in shock, staring blankly at Feng Ruching. Am a beast man? How did I become a beast man? So all these years, she was not human. Xiao Qing, Tang Yin's voice was cracked. If I am not human, would you still like me? Feng Ruching looked at Tang Yin, confused. Did I ever like you? Tang Yin was speechless. She froze, and her heart was filled with coldness. And Feng Ruching was silent for a moment. The Duan family. That is your father's family, and your mother. She raised her gaze to Xiaoya. Is Xiaoya? Tang Yin's body slightly stiffened in the light breeze. After hearing Feng Ruching's words, she slowly turned her head as her eyes fell upon Xiaoya. Xiaoya was a little nervous, not daring to come closer to Tang Yin. She only dared to stand a short distance away, looking at Tang Yin with expectant eyes. Tang Yin pursed her lips. Are you my mother? Xiaoya felt like something was stuck in her throat. She wanted to say something, but she did not even dare to go forward and hug her daughter, whom she had missed for so many years. Tang Yin's eyes were fixed upon Xiaoya. I remember the first time I saw you. I always felt that the way you looked at me was strange. Me for extra chapters. At Xiao Qing's wedding ceremony back then, she was the one who would have gotten injured, but Xiaoya had rushed up to her and blocked the sword for her. Xiao Yas dropped in front of Tang Yin, and it made her heart hurt. She had always thought that Xiaoya saved her for Xiao Qing, but she never thought that there would be such a connection between her and Xiaoya. If you are my mother, then who is my real father? And why have you been disfigured? How did you lose your voice? Tang Yin clenched her fists tightly. Her voice was cold. Before she knew Xiao Ya's identity, she had only sympathized her. However, Xiao Qing had said that Xiaoya was her biological mother. Her mother was so miserable that she was willing to save her daughter's life. So how could Tang Yin abandon her mother? She believed that she was only entrusted to the Tang family because her mother had no other choice. Xiaoya opened her mouth. She was unable to speak, but her eyes were filled with grief. Xiao Yin. Feng Ruching slowly stepped forward and held Tang Yin's shoulder. He'll tell you about the Duan family later. Back then, when both of you were being hunted down, your mother ran to Tsangyu mainland and entrusted you to that person in the Tang family. Do you still remember Jia Xian? He's also from Land of No Return. If you want to escape to Tsangyu mainland, you have to give up all of your power, and that's why your mother had no strength to fight back. Chapter 1709. The Sun is a foundling V. After she went at Songyu mainland, many people chased after her because they knew her daughter was a beast man. Fortunately, second master of the Tang family passed by and saved you. Tang, Yin trembled. Hunting us? And who were the people who were hunting me? The Duan family, your real grandfather and your father's concubine. Feng Ruqing did not want to hide anything from Tang Yin. She deserved to know everything. Tang Yin closed her eyes slowly. She had enjoyed her father's love when she was in the Tang family before he died. She had never met her mother, and the old master of the Tang family had told her that her mother loved her very much, so she had always felt very happy. The elders of the Tang family. They were also pretty good to her, except for a few ones who had bad intentions. But none of them really hurt her. Later, they wanted to use her, disregarding her happiness and hurting the woman she loved the most, which was why she chose Xiao Qing and abandoned the entire Tang family. Now, her mother loved her very much, as the old master of the Tang family had said to her. However, her birth father, and the so-called real grandfather, this matter was really hard for her to accept. I don't want to know about the Duan family, and don't mention them to me again. The old master of the Tang family is my one and only grandfather. There will be no one else. I don't like the others. Those who chose to abandon her. She would never forgive them. Don't worry. Feng Ruqing raised her hand and hugged Tang Yin. The Duan family no longer exists. Oh, that's good. So what if she and the Duan family had blood ties? She had never met anyone from the Duan family and had no feelings that would hurt her to destroy the Duan family. When the Tang family disappeared, she was sad for a while, but the Tang family was at fault. They hurt Xiao Qing's mother, and she could not forgive them. It was just that there were too many memories of her in the Tang family, and she was not a hard-hearted person. Of course, she would be a bit reluctant to let them go. Nan Xian is sleepy. Feng Ruqing yawned. I've said all I have to say. Just let them reconnect on their own. Let's go. All right, Nan Xian responded faintly. He walked over to Feng Ruqing and pulled her waist. Me for extra chapters. Nan Xian, this one on my belly. Is it a boy or a girl? Feng Ruqing smiled. If it's a nice and pretty little girl, it'll stay with her. And if it's a boy, they'll let him go out and cultivate on his own after he can walk. Is that all right? All right, they'll listen to you. Nan Xian looked at Feng Ruqing's belly. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Be it as a boy or a girl. They'll not let them haunt Qing or forever. The backyard was suddenly quiet. Xiaoyu was a little restless, rubbing her sleeves, looking at Tang Yin anxiously. Tang Yin was also a bit silent. She was not quite used to such a situation and did not know how to speak. Only after half a moment did she ask, Are you really my mother? Xiaoyu nodded slightly, her expression growing more and more nervous. So, am I really a beast man? Tang Yin bit her lip, her voice cracking. Chapter 1710. The Sun is a foundling. Vi Xiaoyu trembled and lowered her head, not daring to look directly at Tang Yin's eyes. Forget it. Beastman or not, I'm still better than the Snow Wolf. Tang Yin sighed, but slowly began to accept her real identity. By the way, did you already know I was your daughter? Xiaoyu pursed her lips and remained silent. The spirit beast was familiar with her child's scent. From the first moment she saw Tang Yin, she knew this girl was her daughter. However, she did not tell her daughter because she had no confidence, and she was afraid that her daughter would hate her. Since you already knew it long ago, why didn't you tell me earlier? Tang Yin exhaled. My mother was clearly by my side and has saved my life, yet I didn't know anything about it. Do you know what it feels like? Xiaoyu raised her eyes and looked at Tang Yin in panic. Forget it, Tang Yin sighed. I would have found out sooner or later, anyway. It's not that hard to accept. I just don't want to be a slave to someone else. Xiao Ya's heart tightened. She reached out and grabbed Tang Yin's arm. No, she would never let anyone take Tang Yin away. She would do everything, to the point of risking her own life, to protect her daughter. But Tang Yin tilted her head. You mustn't let anyone know that I'm a beast man, especially that woman who's clinging on to Xiao Qing. What if? She laughs at me when she finds out that I'm not human. Xiaoya opened her mouth and lowered her head in guilt. It was her fault. She was the one who had harmed Ener. Don't be like this. Tang Yin looked at Xiaoya's sad face. I'm not saying that being a beast man is not good. I just feel that. Xiao Qing doesn't seem to like spirit beasts. She never allows the snow wolf to hug her, but Qing Ling, Luo Li, and those girls from Iron-Blooded Gate can hug her. Tang Yin pouted. Xiao Qing wouldn't let me get close to her back then. What if she doesn't like me now? Xiaoya looked at Tang Yin blankly. Whether it was the 9th emperor in her previous life or the current Feng Ruqing, both were very fond of spirit beasts. Why did Xiao Yin feel this way? General manner. Me for extra chapters. In the east wing of the backyard, Feng Ruqing held her chin and smiled brightly as she watched Ahua and other beasts busily cleaning the yard for her. The more you look at this kind of creature, the more you like it. They're not only strong, but also can be a good worker, Feng Ruqing said smilingly. Nancian, do you think Ahua looks as cute as a dog when it's working? Well, the more I look at it, the more I like it if Qinger said it's a dog, and then it is indeed a dog. Nancian smiled gently. You should go rest first. I still have a few things to settle. Feng Ruqing frowned. Is it about the woman who was with Feng Lianqing that day? Have you located her? Qinger, you don't need to worry about these things. They'll settle everything for you. Nancian smiled. You just need to rest at home at ease. All right, you can go, but always be safe. Feng Ruqing frowned lightly. Don't worry. You'll be safe. You just stay at home and wait for me. He was never afraid of anything in this world before he met Feng Ruqing. Chapter 17:11. The son is a foundling guy, however. He was more careful with her because he could not bear to leave her alone in the world. The grief that he had experienced in a dream, he did not want to go through that again. Nancian gently pressed a kiss on a Feng Ruqing's lips. The kiss was as gentle as the warm breeze. Wait for me at home. Nancian turned around and left. Feng Ruqing stood quietly, staring at Nancian's departure figure, lost in thought. A voice of an old person suddenly came from behind her and brought her thought back. Qinger. Feng Ruqing turned, and her gaze fell on the old man in red robes. She smiled. You're looking for me? Yes. Tianya smiled. When your friend came just now, I happened to pass by and took a look. Unfortunately, you don't have an old man like me in your eyes, and you didn't even notice when I walked up behind you. Feng Ruqing was speechless. Just now, she was so full of thoughts on how to talk to Tang Yin about this that she did not even pay attention to Tianya. You came to me just to talk about this? No. Tianya shook his head. I just took a look at that little girl. I guess she's a beast man, right? Feng Ruqing was slightly stunned. She did not expect that Tianya would notice Xiao Yin's identity. That's right. She's a beast man. Ha ha ha. Tianya laughed cheerfully. It seems my vision hasn't deteriorated. That girl is a beast man. Qinga, do you know what a beast man represents? Feng Ruqing's eyes sank slightly. It represents talent and strength. The existence of beastmen is a combination of humans and spirit beasts, so they are more powerful than the average human. But that little girl, she's stronger than the average beastman, and I'm sure one of her parents has a very strong and special power. Special? Feng Ruqing was silent. She still did not know what kind of spirit beast Xiaoya was, and Xiaoya never mentioned it, so she did not ask more. Tianya could see Xiao Yin was a beast man, but he did not know that Xiaoya was a spirit beast, me for extra chapters. You are destined to endure hardships and ups and down with her. Suddenly, Feng Ruqing laughed. Grandfather, back then, mother was captured by the Tang family, and Xiao Yin was the Tang family's young lady. Of course, before that, I didn't know that mother was in their hands. Back then, I went to the Tang family only to get some medicines for my father. The Tang family gave it to Tang Yu, and they even confronted me about it. Her thought drifted back to the moment she met Tang Yin. Tang Yin was willing to turn her back on the Tang family for me. She gave up the place where she grew up, only to be on my side. So, even if Tang Yin is really a dangerous person, how can I ever give her up? Back then, the Tang family was reclusive. She was just a princess of Lu Yun Kingdom. If Tang Yin was so determined to stay by her side, then she would protect Tang Yin in this life. Ha ha! Tianyao laughed wildly, and the laughter echoed throughout the entire general manor. Chapter 17:12. The son is a foundling 8-inch. You're really my brave granddaughter. If I had been afraid of things back then, I wouldn't have rushed off to the reclusive world on my own. Don't worry, Qing. No matter what choice you make, grandfather will always be on your side. He smiled proudly. If anyone in this world dares to touch my granddaughter for this, then I will destroy the entire land of no return, just like what I almost did to the reclusive world back then. Feng Ruqing smiled faintly. Thank you, grandfather. You don't have to thank your grandfather. Tianya patted Feng Ruqing's back smilingly. You're different from your father. He's too soft back then. That was why those people dared to bully your mother. Hee hee. If I were there, I would have destroyed the whole family of people who dared to bully my son. Even though Feng Tianyu held the bloodline, the harem was still stirring up so much trouble. This was simply a disgrace to him. When he went back, no one would be allowed to say that Tianya was Feng Wuhui. He could not let those people in the reclusive world know that Feng Tianyu was his son. It was so embarrassing. Feng Ruqing smiled. All people in Songyu mainland always praised his father. She had never heard anyone say that her father was useless. Her grandfather was the first one to say it. However, she somehow felt that what his grandfather said did make sense. Tianya always took his people and kingdom seriously, and he could also be a ferocious devil if someone crossed his line. He was the kind of man who would never let anyone step on his head, like what had happened to the 3 major forces of Songyu mainland. Girl, your mother is pretty decisive, but your father is a coward. You should never learn from him. I can beat 10 people like him just with one punch. Feng Ruqing was stunned. She cleared her throat and said, Grandfather is right. You can beat 10 of my father with one punch. After all, he can't be so lucky as grandfather to leave the kingdom to his son and go out for a dashing adventure by himself. Tianya smiled awkwardly. Are you praising me or belittling me? If he's capable, he'll also have a son to toil for him. Feng Ruqing was silent for half a moment before continuing. I have a younger brother named Feng Chun, whom I told you about a few months ago. Tianya froze. I forgot about him. In their family, were all the sons of foundling? Me for extra chapters. Feng Ruqing could not help but feel sorry for Feng Chen. I'm not going to disturb your rest. Tianya smiled. My dear granddaughter, just ask someone to come to me if you need anything and don't stress yourself. If someone in Wushang City bullies you, beat them up and drive them out. All right, Feng Ruqing responded. When he saw that Feng Ruqing had agreed, Tianya turned around with a smile on his face and left. After Tianya left, Feng Ruqing pushed open the door and walked in. There was the soup that Helene you had just brought for her on the table, and it was still warm. She went to the table and poured a small bowl of soup from the soup pot. Due to her hunger, she drank the soup in one gulp. Poof. The moment it entered her mouth, she could not hold it in and it spat it out. Chapter 17:13. The son is a foundling. Ix Feng Ruqing's expression darkened, gritting her teeth. Hellion Yu is trying to kill me. The taste of this soup was indescribably strange. The smell was fine, but the taste, it was very hard to describe. In comparison, Tang Yin's goldfish soup was better, even though she was about to vomit after drinking it. Feng Ruqing stared at the soup on the table. A cold light flashed in her eyes. Someone, bring this soup to Feng Lianqing. Tell him that Hellion Yu brewed it for him. Yes, young lady. At this time, in another part of the mainland, an ancient city surrounded by a mountain range. This city was called Nan City. All people in this city had their spirit beasts with them. However, unlike other spirit beasts, their eyes were somewhat dull and did not have the energy that a spirit beast should have. The Nan family was the owner of Nan City. After the old master of the Nan family was paralyzed in bed, the Nan family was inherited by his adopted son, Nan Fong. At this moment, within the Nan family, the elders were expressing their anger, as if someone had killed their whole family. Master, that old man Tianya is really going too far. Don't we need to send someone to teach him a lesson? Our Nan family is stronger than Tianya, so why should we be afraid of him? That's right. Not long ago, my grandson went out for a trip and fell in love with a girl. But it was that girl who first seduced my grandson and then backstabbed him. Tianya beat my grandson without reason and said that he would beat all the members of the Nan family when he saw them again. Nan Fang's face was cold, and as he sat right in front of the chair, not speaking, he remained silent for a long time. Then he slowly spoke. You know the reason why our Nan family doesn't leave Nan City. We're the most powerful here, but other forces are our match outside of Nan City. The crowd was silent, no longer speaking. Tianya has some connections with those forces. I don't understand why he doesn't go to them, but stays in that shabby place called Wushang City. For now, we don't have a way to deal with them. Otherwise, it will be a lose-lose situation. The people continued to be silent for a long time. They somewhat agreed with the head of the family. The Nan family was now strong because of those spirit beasts. Since the old master was unconscious, the Nan family's strength had declined a lot. Me for extra chapters. If it were not for Tian Ya's connection to those forces, the Nan family would not have let him go. Master, are we going to let him go like this? One of the elders frowned and snapped. People like Tian, you don't deserve to live in the world. Nan Fong sneered. How? Is the dragon we captured. If we can completely tame it, sooner or later, this dragon will be able to surpass that side's power. Then, our Nan family will rule the world, and no one can go against us. The elders trembled, but they remained silent. Master, we tried torturing that dragon. We also tried using spirit herbs to control it, but we have all failed. It seems that the dragon already has a master, so it doesn't want to accept us. Nan Fong laughed. So what if it already has a master? Even if it has made a contract with someone, I can still own it. All the spirit beasts in the world belong to our family. So what rights do other people have to rule the spirit beasts besides the Nan family? Chapter 1714. The son is a foundling X. The elder smiled. The old master was too gentle when he became the head of the family. He was strong, but useless. The other Nan family members still could not catch up with the other forces in terms of strength if they only depended on him. However, the new head of the family was decisive. He used spirit herbs to control the beast kings in the beast forest and left the other beasts to the Nan family. To them, the spirit beasts were tools, so why shouldn't they use them? If they followed the gentle old master, when would the Nan family ever get the chance to rule land of no return? Among the crowd in the meeting room, only one old man with white hair was hiding in the corner, looking at the group's fierce eyes, not daring to say a word. The new head of the family and the old master were different, and so were their methods. The old master valued peace and freedom. To him, the spirit beasts could become human partners to cultivate and grow together. However, the head of the family now was quite ruthless. In just over 20 years, all spirit beasts in the Spirit Beast Mountain had been controlled by him. He treated the beasts as his private property, and even if the beast had a contract with someone else, he would send someone to snatch the beast away and kill that person. In the beginning, many clan elders opposed him, but he killed them, leaving only the obedient ones. The old man with white hair had survived until now with hope in his heart. He hoped that the old master would wake up and took back the Nan family, and not let the Nan family be such a mess again. After the meeting was over, Nan Fong left the meeting room and headed toward the prison. The prison was located in the back of Nan Manor, and from afar, he heard an angry voice. You bunch of dog thieves, let me out. If I hadn't recovered my strength, do you think you guys would have been able to catch me? Ridiculous. When I regain the power I had 1,000 years ago, I will be able to destroy your little Nan city with my single breath. The door of the prison was pushed open. At first glance, Nan Fong saw a prison cage, and there was a black dragon inside the cage. The dragon's eyes were glowing with anger, staring at Nan Fong fiercely. At this moment, the dragon was in an impoverished state, with unhealed wounds on its body. Powerful energy filled the cage, but could not break open the cage no matter how hard it tried. "Let me out!" At first, it thought that Fu Chan could restore its strength, so it kept Fu Chan by its side. Its recovery speed was quite good, but not completely healed. Later, when it saw that the recovery was getting slower, it sent Fu Chan back to Lu Yun Kingdom. Me for extra chapters. Later, to stop that bastard, Jia Xin, from touching its family, it had used all its power to open the medium and brought Jia Xin back to this world with it. However, it had used too much energy and its power was drained. It had already found a safe place to recover its strength, but who would have thought that it would suddenly smell Little Nine's scent? It left that place to find Little Nine. However, it did not expect to encounter this group of madmen of the Nan family, chasing it and beating it up. If it still had its strength, these people could never have bullied it so badly. The day it regained its power would be the day the Nan family would be destroyed. Nan Fong slowly walked up to the black dragon arrogantly. "Do you know what the Nan family will do to deal with the spirit beasts that are unwilling to obey us?" The black dragon sneered. "I only know what will happen when you offend your ancestors. You and your whole family are the real beasts." That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.